sister asked.
Yeah.
Nej, det gør det ikke. Normalt så plejer vi bare at lægge den ligge her, og så kan den tage det hele.
Jeg tror, den er til. Nej, ja, dernede til. Jeg tror, jeg sætter mig dernede mellem... Jeg kan se.
Yes. Ja, men... Spørgsmålet er, om vi ikke bare kan sætte den i gang. Den er så god tid på. Hvis vi kører den nu. Det gør vi. Bum.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please have a seat. Before we start this morning's session, I've been asked from the organizers to give a few practical remarks. First of all, just outside this room, there's a table where if you have any kind of publications, information you want to share with the rest of the participants in this conference, you are hereby urged strongly to leave your publications outside on this table, so everybody can. Please have a seat. Was that me? You have it on tape already? Then I'll just stand back and you can play the tape. Okay. So that was one practical remark, and another practical remark, equally importantly, is actually tomorrow night there's a party at 8 o'clock. I'm not quite sure where the party takes place. Here, I can see on Jens' body language. Still tickets available. If you go out to the reception, you can get the tickets out there. Okay, so we will move on to the topic of the day, which is match fixing. We already touched upon that subject yesterday. Match fixing, or manipulation of sports events. Some voices claim that this phenomenon is probably the biggest threat to sport competitions as we know it today. Money involved in sports are increasingly getting higher. It's possible to bet on almost all kinds of sports events today. We also learned from some of the presentations yesterday that probably good governance and ethical behavior is not always as it should be. Hence, attracting organized criminal groups who are always on the look for new commodities, new ways of earning money with the lowest risk and the highest profit. In this session, we will learn more about match fixing and hopefully also learn something about which methods could be implemented to curb this problem. The first speaker is Mr. Stanislas Frossard, Executive Secretary of the Council of Europe, and he will speak about the Convention on manipulation of sports competitions and how it can become more effective. Please, Stanislas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to present the Council of Europe Convention. I will do it with a presentation, and I need to start explaining what the Council of Europe is. You are now quite familiar with the Council of Europe. It's a continental organization covering the entire continent, 47 countries, 800 million citizens. Focus on the promotion of values, human rights, democracy, the rule of law. And what a convention is a legally binding standard on states that have ratified it. It's not something that we can decide for all European countries. It needs a process, signature, then ratification by the national parliament, and then it becomes legally binding. In the Council of Europe, we are used to develop conventions, international treaties. We have around 200 conventions. The most famous one is the European Convention on Human Rights, but I would like to point out 3 of them that are relevant for us in the field of sport. We have the European Convention on Spectator Violence, we have the Anti-Doping Convention, and now we have the Convention on the Manipulation of Sports Competition, which is the latest one that was open for signature in the Council of Europe. Manipulation of sports competition, what do we mean by this? We have quite a broad definition. I won't read in detail, but it covers manipulation of the result, manipulation of the course of the game, betting-related manipulation, sports-related manipulation. It's quite a broad definition. Doesn't mean that the convention considers that every kind of manipulation should be criminalized, but the intention is to have a global approach covering any kind of manipulation. This convention is expected to help to put the issue on the political agenda. to enhance the national legislations of those countries which will ratify the convention, and to set up a formal intergovernmental framework for cooperation. It won't do everything. For instance, it won't set up an international agency. It's not about opening or closing the national betting market. It's not about awareness raising of the public with campaigns, supporting a pilot project, research programs. There are many other organizations which are involved in the fight against match fixing, which play other roles, and we do not pretend that the Council of Europe Convention is the alpha and the omega of all these international processes. Why did we start working on this convention? A few years ago, when we started considering match fixing, there was a few cases that had been identified since the beginning of the years 2000. And nowadays, there are every week new cases that are revealed. According to Interpol, 1 year ago, there was 60 to 80 countries with open cases before courts or with police investigations. It's obvious now that match fixing threats every country, every sport. There are huge number of betting operators, sports betting operators. Most of them are illegal. The turnover of this business is huge, and it become the most topical threat to the ethics of sport, and not only to the ethics of sports, it's also a threat to the rule of law, because organized crime is involved in this, and also a threat to the economy of sport and the economy of betting. How was it prepared? It was prepared under the umbrella of EPAS. EPAS is a group of 36 countries. However, the intention was to have it open to every interesting country, and indeed we had 51 countries which took part in the negotiation, including non-European ones. You can see here on this map that Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Morocco, Israel were around the table and took part in this negotiation. And the intention is not to set up a European instrument, but a treaty open for every interested country. What is the convention about? First of all, it's about coordination of public authorities concerned by match fixing. It's not only the ministries responsible for sports, it's also the justice ministries, the law enforcement authorities, the authorities in charge of the betting regulation. On by hand, and it's also about making a risk assessment on the risk for the competition taking place on the territory of the concerned state. Then there are a large number of provisions on cooperation. I will go a little bit further in detail, and it's mostly cooperation between the main stakeholders. And I mentioned coordination of the public authorities, but it's the key in fighting match fixing is to involve the other stakeholders, meaning the sports organizations, competition organizers, and federations. Of course, the governmental authorities, public authorities, and the betting operators, either private betting operators or lotteries, public betting operators. And this cooperation should take place at a national level. Those entities should be able to work in network and as well as at international levels. For instance, for the purpose of exchange of information, exchange of information for detection of cases within the framework of investigations. And the convention, therefore, at its Article 13, specified that states parties should set up a national platform. I will give some features of this national platform. National platforms will be single contact point, presumably in a public authority, that will allow authorities and sports organizations from other countries to easily get in touch with the relevant people involved in the fight against match fixing. It's looking after the integrity of competitions taking place on the territory of the party, and not only betting-related cases, and not if a regulatory authority will detect some suspicious betting patterns in betting operators licensed in the country, but the competition is taking place in another country, then it will be the role of the national platform to transmit the information to the national platform of the concerned country. The national platform should involve the main domestic stakeholders. It should be connected with the international stakeholders, all the national platforms and international relevant organizations. It should be able to analyze information and to react rapidly. Then the convention includes a number of provisions on preventions with rules that should be adopted, enforced by the sports organization and the betting operators, mostly rules aiming at preventing conflict of interest. Among sports rules, I may mention the protection of whistleblowers within sports movement, the obligation to report approach and suspicious event relating match fixing, training, education, awareness raising within the sports movement. For the betting regulatory authorities are responsible for implementing a number of preventative provision within the betting sector, ensuring exchange of information on illegal betting, on irregular betting, on suspicious betting, and also to share information with the sports movement on the type of bets organized on their own competition. How could we expect the sports organization to monitor the running of their competition if they are not aware of what type of bets are offered on their own competitions? Maybe to limit the supply if there are some evidence that some types of bets are more risky for match fixing. To enforce the use of traceable payment methods by the betting operators, at least above a certain threshold, to fight against illegal betting. Then the convention make reference to sanctions that should be enforceable, disciplinary sanctions by the sports movement, of course, and criminal sanctions when match fixing involves coercive practices, corrupt practices, fraudulent practices, or money laundering activities. And last but not least, the convention foresees some follow-up activities with a follow-up of the commitment of the parties, with the monitoring of the actions taken to implement the convention, possibly adoption of recommendation to specify some general provision of the convention that need to be updated on a regular basis. And I would like to end pointing out the challenges that are faced now and what would be the condition for the convention to work. At present, the main challenge is its entry into force. At present, we have 21 countries have signed the convention, and among them, 2 have ratified it. It's Norway and Portugal, and we need 5 ratification for the convention to enter into force. It will happen soon. I'm confident, but it's quite important to keep promoting this convention, to get more signatories, more ratifications, and also to go worldwide, because for the time being we have mostly Council of Europe member states, European countries, and we are very aware that it's not a European issue. It cannot be addressed only by European countries, and therefore this convention was designed as the most open Council of Europe convention, and it will be very easy for non-European countries to be invited to sign and to ratify it. Another challenge is to set up an effective committee of parties. And I mean by effective committee, a committee involving the relevant public authorities. It's not about delegating this to the regulatory authority or to the sports movement or to the law enforcement, but to involve all these relevant public authority in the work of the convention. For us, at present, it's very important to maintain a network because we have been working with a number of international organizations, private sectors, and specialized organizations, and we need to maintain this good cooperation and sharing of tasks with them. I could mention some of them, of some of our partners. No, I won't go in the detail, but in the sports movement, we had a close cooperation with the IOC, with UEFA. Among the betting operators, we had both cooperation with the private betting operators, mostly represented by ESA, and with the lotteries, world lotteries, and European lotteries. And in addition, we had some cooperation with specialized NGOs, anti-corruption, or NGOs special with a focus on safety, security in sport, or academic institutions. Another challenge at present is to set up the secretariat. We should have an operational secretariat in the course of the year 2016 in the Council of Europe. And as I mentioned, to set up these network at national level with the sports movement, betting operators, public authorities, it's going on even in countries which have not yet signed or ratified the convention. And it was already a positive outcome of the negotiation because the negotiation involved all these authorities, all these stakeholders, and now it became quite obvious that it was needed to have that kind of cooperation and exchange. I come back to the national platforms to say that a challenge is to have national platform with some operational capacity. Of course, the first step is to identify the stakeholders, to decide who will chair this national platform. But if we want the convention to work and to be successful, it should have operational capacity, be able to react, to exchange information very quickly. It's not about setting up a committee that will meet twice a year to exchange news on the latest match fixing cases. It should have operational force. And my message at present is to promote the convention, get involved in the convention, sign it, ratify it, become involved as an EPAS member, and support its implementation at national level. This is the convention. It's available in many languages on the Council of Europe website. And okay, now maybe if we can put the volume, because I have a 30 seconds video to
that the team you support had lost a match on purpose. If you'd bet on a game which turned out to be fixed, if one of the players had been blackmailed, if their families' lives were threatened by organised crime. The manipulation of sports competitions, which includes match fixing, is a global problem which the sports world or individual countries cannot solve alone. The Council of Europe has a convention named after the Swiss town of Macquelin, where it was opened for signature. It's the first international legally binding tool in the fight against match fixing. It improves coordination between sports organisations, betting operators, public authorities, including law enforcement, so countries will be better able to tackle suspicious activity. The Macquelin Convention, an international treaty showing the red card to match fixing.
Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Stanislas, for this very interesting presentation. And I think it was very interesting that you highlighted the fact that the cooperation, this triangular cooperation between governments, authorities, sports organizations, and the betting operators, that's a crucial point to actually get this thing to work. And it's actually exactly where we in Denmark are standing today. on the doorstep to start this cooperation in practical terms. And also I also like to thank you for reminding me that Denmark has not yet ratified this convention. I hope that will happen very soon. The national legislation is just on the way, I was told from the Ministry of Culture. Okay, so we will move on, and I should have said from the beginning we are planning on having 4 presentations before the coffee break, and then another one just after the coffee break, and then we will turn over to the panel discussion. Our next speaker is Mr. Alex Inglot, who is the Director of Communications and Public Affairs for the company Sportradar, who according to their own homepage is the global leader in understanding and leveraging the power of sports data. And he will talk about the match-fixing decade, understanding the last 10 years, and what it means for the next 10 years. So, please, Mr. Inglot is coming there.
First of all, thank you very much to Jens and the team for inviting us to be here. I personally have been monitoring and watching play the game for years, but never had the chance to be here. So I'm very happy that I finally can join the stage and join the discussion. The title of my presentation is about the last decade and what it means for the future. I'm not a historian, so it won't be the most comprehensive. I've tried to inject the key milestones in the last 10 years, but I've also tried to include some of our methodology, because I understand some of the audience won't know exactly how we do what we do. So I think it's important to try and have the context, but also have the details. So hopefully I get the balance right. I mean, match fixing is as old as time. Sports fixing has been happening since the ancient Greeks, so it's not particularly revolutionary in that sense. We've had non-sporting fixes or fixes for betting reasons, as you know, including Bruce Grobbelaar in 1994, where he was accused of fixing for betting reasons. So none of this is necessarily massively revolutionary. However, I think it would be fair to say that things changed quite drastically around about the turn of the century. And that was really precipitated by the evolution of the betting industry. We had, around about the beginning of the century, the global growth in internet and mobile gaming. And what does that really mean? Well, it meant that more betting operators were available. It meant there was more choice and more competition between those operators. There was an increase in pan-global betting versus local betting. So historically, people used to just go to their local betting shop down the road. Now you can forum shop and find a bookmaker in wherever you want who's got the best odds as far as you're concerned. A greater range of competitions and matches were offered as a result of this competition. That's why we're seeing incredibly obscure sports and competitions being offered for bets. More bet-stimulating solutions. So the betting industry became more aggressive and more competitive in what it wanted to offer its users, its punters, and therefore wanted to add results, data, streaming, to make sure that whoever was betting had as much information at their disposal to make their bets as possible. And so we saw also a significant shift towards live betting, which really wasn't possible without real-time data, streaming, and internet and mobile capabilities. So that's the backdrop, the evolution in betting. What about the evolution in fixing? Well, it really moves in tandem. Fixing has been evolving since the ancient Greeks. It's been evolving since 2000. In 2005, one of the most significant cases in match fixing occurred when this gentleman here, Robert Heutzer, was a referee in German football. And it was really the first time that the world, in inverted commas, started to realize that fixing was not just about some dodgy guy coming up to you in a club offering you a few quid to let a goal in, and that was about it, just so he could make some extra money. It was much more organized, much more serious, much more international, and the thing, it was. I think this really changed the way that the industry, or the betting industry, the sports industry, started to react to this. Off the back of that, the German authorities came and spoke to us. But before I follow that history further through, I just wanted to talk a little bit as an interlude about the Asian betting market in in the background of Hoyt's case. I wanted to make one clear distinction immediately. There's a lot of speculation that Asian betting is where all the fixers go because it's designed for fixers. I think that's a little bit of a generalization, or it's maybe getting things the wrong way around. The reality is that a lot of sophisticated, intelligent, legal, informed betting punters cannot bet in regulated markets. These regulated markets very quickly understand who they are, and they don't want their action. They're far too smart for them. They make far too much money out of them. And what it does is it pushes a lot of legitimate bettors out, or big money bettors out. And so what I've tried to do is, yes, the characteristics of the Asian market are very suitable for fixers, but it's also suitable for non-fixers. So I think I just wanted to quickly just draw out the distinction that it's not just there to purely serve fixers, or that it's only there that the characteristics have been developed to entice fixers. Trust me, the Asian markets don't particularly want fixers. They're losing money as much as anyone else. So, but I wanted to draw a specific attention to the bottom row, which talks about monitorable. There is the assumption that unregulated or Asian markets can't be monitored. Yes, everyone can see the regulated market. It's got very sophisticated safeguards in place. Therefore, most or a lot of organizations, including the betting operators themselves, can see those movements or see those strange behaviors. But actually, the same is true of a lot of the Asian market. And that's because of this pyramid system that you can see on the right of the slide. Bets don't sit at a level. They always climb up, and eventually they end up on a monitorable system. So I can go into that in more detail in the Q&A if we have time. I'm conscious that I've only got 15 minutes for this part, and I want to keep going with the main body of the presentation. So we're back to the history. The German authorities spoke to us after Hoytzer and said, "Listen, you guys have got all this betting data. Can we work together to try and create a solution that helps us get ahead of this problem?" At the time, they were still focused on pre-match. They wanted to try and see if they could stop or catch fixing before it happened. That was back in 2005. UEFA also saw what was happening, and very quickly they decided that they wanted our system as well. Not only did they want our system, they wanted it across the first top 2 divisions of each of their member associations, plus the domestic cup competition in each of those countries. And that's been happening since 2009. We still do that. It's over 150 competitions a year that we monitor on behalf of UEFA. Here are just a quick snapshot of some of the other federations and competitions that we work with and that we monitor. We monitor well over 250 competitions in the world across 11 sports, including, in the bottom right, the esports league. Some of you may have heard of esports, some of you haven't. Some of you will think it's not a real sport. Some of you think it's a few guys in a garage playing Mario Kart. It really isn't. I urge you to have a little look, 5-10 minutes, at what esports looks like today, and my jaw hit the floor. I'm sure most of yours will as well. So how does the fraud detection system work? I don't want to spend too much time on it, but it is quite important. Basically, we have 2 phases. The first phase is really about the monitoring, it's the analysis, it's the algorithms, it's the technology. We have about 5 billion data sets come into our system every day from about 450 betting operators around the world. That includes spread bettors, it includes betting exchanges, lotteries, online, offline bookmakers, legal, illegal, regulated, unregulated, however you want to define them, they're all in there, or most of them are in there, should I say. Most of the key players are in there. And our system is basically tasked with looking in the pre-match for suspicious or large movements in the market, and in the live market to look for deviations from what the odds should be in the market at any point in time. Our system, the first part of our system, is very paranoid. It raises far too many alerts than it needs to, but that's what it's programmed to do. We'd rather have too much information than too little at that stage. After that, the second phase kicks in. We have 35 expert analysts from around the world, around the industry. They're all based in 3 different offices. Their job is within 72 hours to look at each alert that comes in, take ownership of that alert and explain it if they can. And they have to explain it either through their own research, through talking to the rest of the team, or through talking to freelance journalists on the ground in different countries. We've got about 200 journalists in different countries who can give us that little bit of extra insight of what's happening on the ground. if after that whole filtering process, we still think it doesn't make sense, there's just no legitimate reason, the stadium wasn't changed, the weather hasn't changed, the players aren't ill, there aren't significant injuries, etc., then we consider it a highly suspicious match, and we send a report within 72 hours to the sports organisation that has tasked us to monitor that competition. That's where our primary role is finished. Of course, we support anything that happens afterwards, whether it's an internal investigation, sport investigation, legal investigation. We're happy to support, to train, to inform, to explain our reports, because they're not always obvious to the people who even receive them. So that's the process in a snapshot. Again, happy to go into more detail. But sport was the one leading the way since the beginning, since 2000 and onwards. It was really all about sport, has been for most of the time. But there's a problem with that. They have a low amount of time, money and resources. They have a low understanding generally of the betting world. I'm talking generally, of course there are exceptions. They have weak jurisdictional reach. So here on the right we've got our friend Jerry. We can play a game of Where's Jerry, which is similar to Where's Wally, because he appears in the presentation a few times. But this is Jerry, who was involved in match fixing. He was the guy on the ground in a big case, making the fixes, organising the players, making sure they got the right results. But he's got nothing to do with any sport. He's not a member of any federation. And so therefore FIFA, UEFA, ICC, IHF, it doesn't matter, they can't touch Jerry. They can ban him from a stadium, but he's really not going to cry into his pillow about that one. So the sanctioning powers also can be weak. What can you do? You can ban someone from a stadium, you can fine them. If they're players, you can hit them pretty hard, but if they're not players, what can you do? And then there's a potential conflict of interest. Some organizations are very scared of match fixing and very scared to be seen to be doing something in match fixing because it has a reputational impact. If you are very proud because you catch 100 fixes and you think that you've cleaned up your sport, there's going to be a lot of people who latch on to the fact that you've got 100 fixes in your sport and think, well, your sport's in trouble, we don't trust it anymore, how do we know that this is the end of it? So it's a bit of a problem to try and balance the desire to be seen as an integral, an organization with integrity versus the impact that it can have. So what's changing? I'm trying to kind of look at the key milestones. We're back with Jerry. If you were playing the game, here he is, but that's pretty obvious. So we wanted law enforcement. I think everyone wanted more law enforcement involvement, purely because you have stronger and wider investigative powers. They can do more. They can look at bank accounts. They can wiretap. They can flip witnesses. All these things that sport has no ability to do. They have, like I said, the jurisdictional reach to go after Jerry or various other people. Not to say it's easy, but it is there. There is, in theory, the ability to go beyond the people who are in the sports arena. And then you've got potentially strong sanctioning powers, not just stadium bans and bans from FIFA or whatever it is. You can talk about fines, prison, extradition. So it's a good thing. This is a case that we were involved in. This is the Southern Stars case back in 2013, where I don't want to go into too much detail because of timing, but we helped the Australian authorities, the FFA, who we originally approached, which were the football authorities, who very quickly brought on the Victoria Police. And within a few weeks, we managed to close an investigation on 6 individuals. 4 of them were players. They were all banned from FIFA, football worldwide, and they were all sanctioned legally as well. So for us, at that point in 2013, it was a successful template of how more and more stakeholders and organizations can work together to try and really hit the fixers where it hurts. For those playing Where's Jerry, he's there in the bottom right corner with his football friends, looking distinctly unlike a football player. He was there, he was the fixer, he was the guy on the ground telling them the scores, looking after them, making sure that they were having this beautiful lifestyle that was clearly outside their financial means, which was part of what gave it away, really. That flat in the top left corner was where they were living in Melbourne, and there was no way they were affording that on their salaries. Not all fixers are smart, I think is a conclusion we can reach. So that was a reactive situation. Something was happening, the authorities came together, we did something well. How has that evolved? Well, when we've moved from reactive to proactive, this is again Australia who seem to have been kind of quite the leaders in this area. They, in the AFC Asian Cup at the beginning of the year, they realized this is a tournament, a key tournament that they wanted to make sure went well. And they organized a unit that was going to look after match fixing for the tournament. And they put together this unit months in advance in order to make sure that everyone knew what were the processes, how were they educating, what was the communication chain, how was everything processed, what was going to happen if there was a fix. Everything was set up well in advance to make sure that, first of all, everything ran smoothly, but also I think it was a powerful message in terms of deterrent and prevention to say, by the way, guys, just in case you're thinking of fixing this, we do have our eyes on this tournament. So I'm not to say that that's going to frighten all the fixers away into their caves, but it's a powerful message that hadn't necessarily been available widely beforehand. Stan will know roughly where I'm heading with this now. So what's the next step? Well, the AFC example is an ad hoc, one event, proactive system. What about trying to make it non-ad hoc, but make it ongoing? And I think that's really the thinking behind the national platform concept. The concept is that all the relevant stakeholders in a country are kind of sitting around a mythical, theoretical round table and discussing how they're going to work together on this issue. So we're going to have the betting industry. This is all stuff that Stan has talked about. You're going to have the sports stakeholders. You're going to have law enforcement and prosecutors, and you're probably going to have public authorities. The convention is actually quite open about how it should be structured, where it should be placed, who should sit on it. But I think that's a rough model that most national platforms and countries will be looking to kind of mold their national platform to. And I'm sure there'll be third-party service providers to add other expertise to that national platform. So the last few slides now, just to kind of take stock a little. Where are we now? I'm sure there are different opinions on this. That's why we've got a panel, not just me. I think generally the awareness and growing concern about the issue is on the up. You know, Declan started this conversation back in 2005. We're 10 years on. Has a lot been done? That's up for a serious debate. But it's in the public eye. It's moved from Play the Game to UEFA to the IOC to national platforms to conventions. There is evolution. Some will say it's too slow. Some will say it's not enough. But it is moving in the right direction. There's been investment. We know about the IOC who've put aside the $10 million for match fixing. UEFA, obviously, with their significant investment in our services. There's been a variety of education programs provided by FIFPro, EU Athletes, ESSA, Transparency International, Interpol. Again, we can have a debate. Are they good? Are they better? Which is worse? Which is better? Are they doing a good job? I think the fact that they're there is good. It's generating awareness. Again, I'm sure this will be discussed on the panel. There are pockets of investigative expertise, people who have been involved in this, who are experts, who understand how it works. People like Terry Steens, Zaihan from New Paper in Singapore, doing a lot of investigative work, getting under the skin of this. There's a range of monitoring solutions. There's us, there's ESSA, who put out their quarterly reports, which are always worth a read. So there's that. There's law enforcement collaboration. I just talked about Victoria Police, but they're not the only ones. We, by ourselves, have worked with Europol. We've worked with the Austrians. We've worked with the Latvians. We've worked with the Czechs. So the police are getting involved. And I think, as Stan said, the call for national platforms is an encouraging step about collaboration, understanding that we can all work better if we work together, which hasn't necessarily always been the case in the last 10 or so years. But, and there's always a but, more understanding is needed across the board. It's really encouraging to see a lot of people still interested, still wanting to know more, still feeling that there's more to know. And I think that's only a good thing. There needs to be more investment from beyond sport. Sport are putting up a lot of money, but they can't do this by themselves. And they need money to plow into law. They need law enforcement. They need money to plow into prosecutors. They need resources to come from other directions. Stronger deterrence. We need sanctions to be really powerful, to really send the message home. In the Southern Stars case, the players all received fines between $1,000 and $3,000 Aussie dollars for their role in the Southern Stars case. I'm not sure if that's a powerful enough deterrent. So I think we need to kind of revisit that. And really, the Austrians sent 8 players to prison, which was pretty strong. Is that the right way? Is that the wrong way? Again, point for debate, but I think we need to get to a really powerful deterrent position. Clearer legislation. A lot of countries don't have match-fixing laws, and that's a real problem. It's not just window dressing. The fact is that public prosecutors have limited time, resources and money. If they are given a match-fixing case that doesn't fit, isn't a slam dunk under existing legislation, they need to kind of finesse other legislation such as bribery or conspiracy to defraud, they're just going to go, you know what, I've got 10 slam dunks here, I've got match-fixing which I might win or not, I'm putting my resources there. That's a really awful situation to be in. So I think legislation does need to be changed, and there's a lot of people who are in those decision-making positions who don't appreciate how important match fixing is. Like I said, it's serious crime. Improved monitoring with account details. We're working to do that. I think the national platforms are about that. We can do a lot, but we don't have account details in our monitoring system, so I can't, or Sportradar can't identify the specific account that is causing the movement. We can find the match, we can find the time, we can find the bookmaker, we can't find the account. So that will improve things. It will make life a lot easier for prosecutors and police if they have more detail. More collaboration and more trusted experts. I think the match-fixing industry, some will agree, some will disagree, but it's a little bit of a Wild West. And like in the Wild West, there are a lot of people selling snake oil. I think it's very difficult to see who are the experts, who are doing the good work. We've got a very strong panel here, but there are a lot of people who position themselves as understanding this, who are at the coalface, who may not necessarily be. And I think it's important that we try and, as an industry, because we're not going to hide from the fact there is an anti-match fixing industry, but there needs to be clarity about who to trust. I think the Council of Europe, EPAS, are trying to do some good work to try and finesse who is to be trusted by the national platforms in the countries going forward. The international body or a code, well, that's the million-dollar question. A lot of people have very strong opinions one way or another. I think my position at the moment, I'm happy to elaborate on it. The convention as it stands is quite flexible. The reason that it's flexible is because each country has its own betting landscape, its own criminal and prosecutory landscape, its own sport organizational landscape. I think that flexibility was on purpose, to try and allow each country to create its own model, to try and create a single model that is going to be imposed from above on everyone. In theory, sounds like a good idea, but it could cause probably a lot more ruptures and arguments and discomfort. And I think it might happen down the line, but I think this is a long process. And I think the convention is a step in the right direction. If people think that a code or an international body should be put on top of all of this, I don't disagree, but I think it's not the right time just yet. That's my own opinion. I think that's pretty much it. Probably gone over time, I apologize. But thanks for your attention, and I'll be happy to take questions later.
Thank you very much, Alex. You might spend a little bit too much time, but it doesn't matter because it was extremely interesting and very fruitful to listen to your presentation, and also to get some more knowledge about how you actually work in your organization with the monitoring and detecting irregularities, but also how you can be and have been several times an active player in concrete criminal cases and work together with law enforcement. And that actually gives me the clue for the next presentation. I'm pleased to present Mr. Nick Cheviron, who has been flown in directly from Washington, D.C. Nick is a supervisory special agent from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, probably better known to most people as the FBI or simply the Bureau. And Nick will give us a presentation and an overview of how this problem looks from a law enforcement perspective. Nick, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for everyone who's shown up and prepared to listen. I'm going to try desperately hard to stick to 15 minutes because I think it's important to sort of get to some of the questions in the debate after this. I think that's just as important. That being said, 15 minutes is not a long time to sort of discuss match fixing, how the FBI approaches match fixing, and sort of our investigations into it. So I'll be brief, but hopefully provide a good summary. So again, my name is Nick Cheviron. I'm a supervisory special agent with the FBI. I'm currently stationed in the transnational organized crime section of our criminal investigative division, which is headquartered in Washington, D.C. one of the responsibilities I have is that in that role is the oversight of our match fixing or sports bribery investigations and our sports bribery or match fixing program, which I'll touch on near the end of this. I'm sorry, first of all, if I say sports bribery when I mean match fixing. That's just what we call it in the U.S. And I'm also sorry, I'm going to try not to if I call it soccer instead of football, but I'll do my best. So I'm always sort of interested when I get some of these requests from sort of the global community on what the U.S. perspective is or our sort of approach to match fixing, because in the U.S. it's largely not a problem. I think that can be sort of discussed or debated on why that is. And I think we might get to it a little bit later here. But for us, it's largely not as big of a problem as it is in Europe and Asia. That being said, I think we have some vulnerabilities to our sports, particularly in the NCAA university sporting realm. And I'll touch a little bit on that, but I think there's also a whole presentation on the NCAA tomorrow. So with that being said, we target or we investigate match fixing through our investigation into organized crime. In the U.S., betting is another sort of unique and sort of a rare situation in the U.S. in that largely most of it, sports betting, is illegal. You can bet in a few small places, mostly in Nevada, maybe a few online spots throughout the U.S., but largely most of the sports betting market is illegal. That being said, there's a huge U.S. market for sports betting. So the only one to sort of fill that gap is organized crime and their facilitation of these online sports books, which over the past few years have exploded. Alex was just talking about it. So we in the FBI sort of get to match fixing investigations, we investigate organized crime, and particularly we investigate their use of illegal gambling businesses to sort of recruit players, generate money, and whatnot. So with that being said, I wanted to sort of talk for a minute about how we go about our illegal gambling investigations. I mentioned these online sports books, which in many areas of the world they're legal. However, in the U.S., the operation of them is not legal. These things have been popping up all over the place. They continue to pop up. There's thousands of websites in the U.S. Largely, like I said, organized crime is operating these websites. They're generating huge amounts of money for the organized crime group. And so the FBI developed an initiative to really target these internet sports books. We see them as an emerging threat. It's an easy tool for organized crime to use to generate huge amounts of money with relatively low penalties. So we developed this to sort of develop our best practices for our cases in the U.S. and sort of help our state and local partners as well as our international partners improve our public and private sector partnerships and develop interagency working groups. But we're really trying hard to put a focus on these types of investigations, which ultimately lead to athletes, gambling, organized crime groups exploiting and recruiting those athletes. I want to point out just a few successful cases. And again, these are not match-fixing cases. These are internet sportsbook cases, organized crime internet sportsbook cases. But I think I just wanted to highlight quickly, as you can see, multiple people arrested, the dismantlement of the organized crime group, and millions of dollars seized. And that's an important part because those are proceeds, assets that are not going to organized crime, not allowing them to facilitate the other criminal activities that they would be doing, like drug trafficking, extortion, and whatnot. So I mentioned earlier that I think that in the U.S. our main vulnerability as it relates to sports and match fixing is sort of the NCAA. We have a lot fewer professional leagues in the U.S. in both American football and basketball and football. So largely our professional athletes are paid quite a bit of money. And so it's just not sort of feasible for organized crime groups to pay them the amount of money that they would need to sort of influence games. But NCAA players, university players are not paid, and there's still a massive amount of money being bet on American football, university, and university basketball. I want to point real quickly, what's interesting is our sports athletes in university, and again, I don't want to go into this too much, but it's very clear for our student athletes that are involved in university sports, gambling is not legal any way, shape, or form. They can't do it. They'll be suspended from their sport, sometimes kicked out of the university. But it's very clear cut, and it's in the NCAA bylaws. The student athletes have to sign every year. So they're not allowed in sports gambling. That sort of keeps them out of being vulnerable to organized crime groups. They also cannot give information on, injuries or problems with the coaching staff, which betting groups often use. So it's very clear that they cannot sort of be involved in that. That being said, they do this study in the U.S. every 4 years, so 2012 is the most recent data. And it's a long study. I think it's 70 pages, but this is just one of the summary statistics that I thought was interesting. This is the percentage of student athletes that have gambled for money in the previous 12 months. And although the trend seems to have gone down a little bit in males, it'd be interesting to see what it is in 2016. But 57%, and that's 57% of people that admitted to it. I mean, there ultimately it's just a survey, admitted to gambling. And I mean, that's still a huge number of students that are gambling and are potentially susceptible to organized crime and the vulnerabilities that they bring forward. So I want to highlight just a couple of our successful match-fixing cases, again, which sort of started as illegal organized crime group investigations, and match-fixing began to sort of get flushed out during the investigation, and the investigation turned towards it. Because although it's, for us, match-fixing or sports bribery cases are relatively rare in the U.S. for a variety of reasons, they're also quite important. As everyone's mentioned here, I think no one would doubt the importance of protecting the integrity of sport. So they're important. We push resources to them. This is just a quick overview. It was the University of Toledo case, which is in Ohio. The one thing I wanted to point out about this, again, it was an organized crime group. You'll see it's a common theme here. Organized crime group operating an illegal gambling business. These athletes sort of got involved in gambling, sort of harmless. Before they knew it, they were being approached by the group to manipulate games. What's interesting is it involved both sports in basketball and football. The amount of penetration the organized crime group made into this case is sort of unbelievable. It spanned 2 seasons. The group has all pled guilty by now. Some of the sentencings are still sort of out there, but so none of the defendants went to trial. But what's interesting is, in some of those proceedings, the organization admitted to fixing at least 17 basketball games over 2 seasons, and one individual profited at least $330,000 from this. I think it's also important to note for us, match manipulation, the definition is, it varies who you ask. But for us, I mean, these are games that were set up, picked by the group, where they had good odds, and the teams were actually, losing games for this thing. So it wasn't a simple manipulation or something like this. I mean, the penetration again to these teams was unbelievable. Even in football, where football is American football, even in American football where one player cannot easily influence the game, they were still able to make a lot of money on that using some of the American football players. They recruited 3 of the star running backs who all admitted to fumbling the ball at inopportune times. One was even on the goal line. Made a lot of money doing that. So again, as I mentioned, all the defendants have pled guilty and they're awaiting sentencing. I'm going to sort of breeze through this a little bit because there's a couple points I want to highlight. On Sunday, I talked about this case. This was a case I investigated, so I know it very well. But again, it was a Middle Eastern organized crime group operating an illegal gambling business. They used an intermediary to get to the athlete, which was an assistant coach at the time, but he was fired and later sort of kept up his relationship with the student athletes. Again, he was a former assistant coach, but he kept close relationships with the players even after he was fired. he would give the players, he worked at a bar, he'd give the players, free entry, he'd give them free beers. And I mean, he was just a likable, sort of charismatic person. And so it was sort of easy for him to sort of develop those relationships. But he was also a heavy gambler. He often found himself in huge amounts of debt to the group with no real way to sort of pay back the group. And so he turned to sort of exploiting those relationships with his players. And again, I think it's important to mention that he was sort of the middleman between the organized crime groups and the players. Organized crime groups rarely, go straight to the players. They know the players would be able to, sort of hold their hands up and say, this is something I don't want to get involved in. But they use sort of this soft approach and use sort of an intermediary. Again, this was the main player. He successfully fixed at least 4 games during one season. And what's interesting about him is he was the face of the program. It was a relatively small school. He was the all-time scoring leader. He had records for several different categories at the university. He was the face of the program, and they were able to still sort of recruit him. But I think that sort of led to one of his main reasons for joining the organization. He had become dissatisfied with the coaching staff. He didn't feel like he was getting enough praise or compliments, I think, from his teammates. And so I think that's what made part of the recruitment very easy. So one of the things about match-fixing sports bribery cases, particularly in the U.S., is they're difficult to prove. It's nice to have, like Alex mentioned, betting activity, suspicious reports. People hear things. It's very difficult to prove, even with all of these things. So we typically employ, when we can, wiretaps. And in the U.S., it's very difficult to get wiretaps, certainly. It's sort of a last resort. But wiretaps provide usually the best evidence. To have the people actually talking about the match sort of becomes undeniable evidence. So I want to play for you very quickly a short clip. And again, this is between Thaddeus Brown and Brandon Johnson, the middleman and the player, discussing a past game. I'll also sort of give a caveat that these are actual wiretap calls. There may be some explicit offending language in these clips. We don't, FBI doesn't endorse that. It's just these are how these guys talk, and these are real calls. So I thought it'd be important to play this just short clip if we could.
I'm like, nigga, I had to go out there and start and have that bitch like really, you know what I'm saying? Like, nigga, I had to really go make my shit happen, nigga. That's what I tried to tell this nigga. I'm like, this nigga had to way hard. I'm like, this nigga had to shit go out there and make some shit happen for real. Like, man, remember LMU? I was like, I gotta get this out. I remember I didn't even shoot the hell at the buzzer. I was like, get me that. Coach was like, how you get a shot up? I'm in the locker room like, you can say what you want, but that's a G right there. I'm like, nigga, that's why I ain't get no shot up. That shot never got me the G. Fuck what you talking about? I'm telling you, you can get all you want, nigga. I just got paid, dumbass. Yeah, I'm in that hole smiling. We losing. No, we not. I'm winning tonight.
So again, I know it's sort of hard to hear, but I think I put up some of the relevant quotes, and I think just the tone of them, they're so cavalier about it. They're so sort of arrogant. They don't seem to care about it at all. The game film showed exactly those activities. They were down by 3. The star point guard, their best chance at sort of tying or getting a shot up, he simply threw the ball away. But even with that film, if you were just watching the film, it wouldn't necessarily be sort of damning evidence, but with this it certainly is. And he says, the coach was yelling at him, "We're losing. Why are you smiling?" And he says, "Well, I'm winning tonight," because he got paid $1,000 for that game. So again, at least a quick summary, at least four games were fixed during that season, but Johnson graduated. He was a senior. The group sort of wanted him to continue even though he was out of the program, and so instructed him to sort of recruit additional players. Johnson identified a starting forward that he thought he could recruit and thought would be fine. The organized crime group wanted to meet with him to sort of make sure everything was on the up and up, and sort of make sure that this new guy could sort of orchestrate the scheme as well. I thought this was good. This is another just quick clip of an informant talking to one of the members of the organized crime group, and they're talking about what they said to the starting forward, and explained to him he's going to have problems if he's not able to kind of conduct this scheme. So just quickly.
Getting down anyway. There you are, homie. Come on. They're not getting down until I make. Bro, listen, I give the guy 10 rags. I'll be right there, Steve. I gave the guy 10 rags. He goes, he wants the money up front. I said, Nick, let me go bet it, and I said, I'll cash you out when I get back. He goes, no. He goes, I said, listen. I said, if I give you the money up front and you score more than fucking 4 points, you're gonna have a fucking nightmare. I'm just telling you right now. I said, I know you can't guarantee me nothing. I said, but if you don't do your job, people are gonna come down. It's not gonna be me. I'm just letting you know. I'm let him play.
So again, I mean, even when they're trying to recruit this guy, they're trying to sort of woo him. They're saying, hey, listen, we'll give you $10,000, but if you don't come through, you're going to have problems, and it's not going to be me that's going to be knocking on your door. There's a lot of motivation / vulnerabilities for this to happen. I think for Brandon Johnson, mostly being unappreciated, and certainly money and greed were the two important ones. A quick summary of the case. Federal indictments, again, we do in the U.S. have federal charges for sports bribery, which I think is sort of very helpful for our sort of fight against it. The sentences range, again, this organized crime group was involved in a myriad of criminal activities, so the sentencing ranged quite widely. But Brandon Johnson, the player, got 6 months. He had relatively low criminal history, which is why his low sentencing, but he at least went to prison for it. And then quickly, just to sort of touch on this is the last slide, our sports presentation program. So aside from our investigations, we also have sort of training and outreach that we have with our sporting leagues and also the NCAA. We sort of engage with them, try to talk to the athletes, try to steer them away from some of the pitfalls of getting involved in illegal activity, and it's been a sort of an effective outreach program. So we try to sort of educate and conduct outreach as well as conduct our investigations. So I hope I hit some important points there. I want to keep to my time. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Nick, for this highly interesting presentation and insight in how you work with this problem at the FBI and the importance, of course, also to utilize the means that law enforcement have, like, for instance, wiretapping, as we had some good examples on here. So we will have the last presentation before the coffee break. We probably have to delay or postpone the coffee break a little bit, but I still think we have plenty of time afterwards for the last presentation and for the debate, which is very important. So now I would like to turn over the floor to Mr. Declan Hill, who is an author, PhD. And if you read his CV, you will see that he has published a lot of publications about match fixing and corruption within different sports disciplines. And the catchy title on his presentation is "Forget the Mafia, Coming into Sport." Please.
Good morning. Let's have some fun. Let's enjoy ourselves this morning. Can we get some microphones out to the audience? Is that possible? Can we get some microphones? So with your participation, we're going to have some fun here. I'm enjoying myself this morning. I know Stanislas and Alex quite well, the good pals of mine. I've never met Nicholas before. I really like your work, sir. But unfortunately, because of their career limitations, they can't say what I'm about to say. Their hands are handcuffed. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. As Nicholas was kind enough to introduce me, I've written a number of books. One's in 21 languages. It's now been optioned by Hollywood. It's a international Fox television series coming out next year. And it's my story of my infiltrating one of these Asian organized crime gangs as they were attempting to fix the World Cup. So can we get the lights off and let me show you a video of one of these guys in action, please? Lights, is that possible? No? Technically challenged today, are we? So I don't know if you guys can see, the Danes are struggling at the back, running around. Light switches are usually on the walls, guys. Right. Okay. I don't want to embarrass them anymore. Can we just show them the guys the video? This is the kind of guy that I still speak to, probably around a weekly occasion. I have a couple of these conversations once a week. Can we play the video? So we're really having problems here with the Danes and technology, guys. It's easier if you don't play it in PowerPoint, if you just play it in...
How is the match fixed? We go to the General Secretary and we tell the General Secretary, we pay you this amount of money. Give me a team that is going to listen to us. Every game we make $10,000. So, like we had send a team under 16 or under 18 team. Everybody was in on the money. The whole team.
So all the players?
Everybody.
Oh, so from the General Secretary down?
Everybody.
How much at that stage would they pay?
I give each player $1,000 just for them to go shop, relax. For an African player from who doesn't even have a bank account.
Huge.
It's 1,000 is huge.
So does that include the fix as well?
No.
They probably would have done it for that.
This is just a candy. To come back to me and say, I said, after each game, you'll get like $5,000 to $10,000 per game.
And they were?
Yeah.
Cash.
Cash.
Nicholas, I'm not sure if you know about international soccer, but generally national soccer associations are run by the Secretary General. So he's like the equivalent of the CEO of the National Football League. Did anyone get that first sentence? Who's organizing the fix on the sporting side? Sir in the gray jacket. He's looking intelligent in a way. Can we get the microphones into the audience so we can wake these guys up, please? What do you notice? Somebody speak to me. Jens? Who's running the fix for these guys? The Secretary General. So this is about, forget the myth. Forget the paradigm that's being told to you that there's organized crime entering sport. The way we're going to win the next campaign, the next battle to prevent match fixing systemically, is we've got to deal with the mafias inside sport. They're a massive problem. So let's just give you a quick outline in the next 15 minutes. I'm going to do a quick review of the long, sorry history of mafias inside sport involved in match fixing. We'll take a quick look at Dan Tan's network. That was the gang that I infiltrated up until 2013. Then I'll take a quick look at the current situation, what's going on now. And then I'd like to leave you with a very strong message about what Alex was talking about, which is the Wild West of the anti-match fixing industry. So, where's my microphones? Yes, can you hand it to the gentleman just beside you, please? Right there, yes. Can you read this for us, please?
Yes, I can read.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm just read this, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. I don't know if it's necessary, but I suppose we all can read, but I will do this for you.
It gives those poor people a change from just listening to me.
One of these days, the sport will be dragged out of the mire of corruption, but the Grand Inquisitor, I think it's you, will not find all the guilty in the dressing rooms. He'll have to haul his dragnet through the offices and boardrooms. The example from the top, where intrigue and corruption can be sheltered by officialdom, is not so difficult to follow. And for the youngsters entering the game, the temptation to do as is done unto them, is very strong.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The reason why I'm asking, why I point that out is this is a British player who was talking about the widespread match fixing in the British leagues in the 1950s and 60s and talking about that. Can we get a microphone to somebody else close by? I just want to change the voice. I'm sorry, I feel that I've made you uncomfortable there. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to get different voices here. This is a court testimony of Ludwig Baron who was a match fixer for the French team Girondins de Bordeaux. Can you just give the microphone to somebody and they just read it out for us, please?
So I said to Claude, the owner of Girondins de Bordeaux, if you want us to win, you've got to make a move and do something like the other clubs, create a slush fund to pay referees and linesmen with gifts and prostitutes. He said, okay. After that, the referees started falling over themselves to come to referee our games.
That was Ludmir Baron speaking about bringing in high-class prostitutes from Paris down to Bordeaux in the 1990s. The same thing was corroborated in a trial of Olympique de Marseille. Jean-Pierre Baron talked about the system of winning the Champions League, the system that you had to bring in, that you had to systematically bribe and use these gifts. I want to emphasize that that wasn't every single team in the Champions League in that time, but we had court testimony coming out in the 1990s because these guys actually wanted to declare these funds that they were using to bring in prostitutes and provide fur coats and gifts tax-free. And there was a series of court trials in the 1990s showing this kind of stuff. This is from the Middle East. Again, let's get someone to read this for me, please. Just hand it to somebody. I just want to change the volume, so change my voice. So just to one of these people, please. Thank you, sir.
When I was the coach of the XXX under-20 A national team, I remember a sheikh walked into our dressing at halftime with a briefcase full of cash, 25,000 US for us to lose the game to the sheikh's team. It was in the qualifying rounds of the under-20 World Cup, and there had been an offer before the game.
So this system of corruption inside the game in terms of match fixing, we've gone from Europe, now we're seeing it in the World Cup and stuff. And this is bringing it up a little bit more, 2004. This is one of the interviews that kicked off my research into match fixing. It's an interview, it's an excerpt of an interview with some UEFA officials. Again, just have somebody read this for us, please. Just pick someone out. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Hill, how much trust do you have in the national federations? UEFA officials, laughter. We will be honest, sometimes they are the problem. In fact, unless you want to get killed, I would avoid Romania, Ukraine and Turkey. Very dangerous places. The mafia runs those places.
Right, this is UEFA officials speaking about their challenges of their work and stuff. That was the situation up until about the early 2000s. And what we saw, as Alex explained clearly, was the globalization of the sports gambling network. There was a consistent fire that was going out through football, and the globalization of the sports gambling market and the capacity to make money by fixing was the gasoline on those fires. Again, let's just whip through very quickly what Dan Tan and this one particular network that I infiltrated was able to do. This is how they were able to work. Again, I'm going to bounce through this quickly, but they're essentially forming marriages of convenience. They fix the gambling market, and these local guys fix the actual games. So Dan Tan had a wide network coming out of Singapore. It worked in Central America, worked in Latin America. It still is working in my country, Canada. It's quite embarrassing. They ran a fixing ring in South Africa. They also fixed games in South Africa just before the World Cup in 2010. They were there during the 2010 World Cup. They had people across Africa. In fact, they basically ran the Zimbabwean Football Association for a number of years. Greece, there's a trial going on that I'll talk about in a second. Finland, of course, Germany, where your colleagues, Nicholas, have done a fantastic work. Involving several hundred cases. Italy, they've had 3 or 4 now match-fixing investigations. The Slovakians, the Czechs, the Austrians, the Swiss, which was thrown out through technical stuff, the Slovenians, the Croatians, the Bulgarians, where some of the money came from, the organized crime money came from. Belgium, they've had a number of investigations. Much of the money comes from China. Again, you saw Alex talk about them working in Australia. Dan Tan's network. Right. Now, the official story is that they did all this with rogue players. That they built this entire network across 31 different countries only using referees and players. Is there anyone in this room that's stupid enough to believe that? Please put your hand up. Because that's what we're being asked to believe. There's one South African match official in the last 2 weeks that's been banned for the sport for 6 years, not permanently, not out of the game completely, but just for 6 years, for working with them while he was a South African Football Association official in the weeks running up to the South African World Cup in 2010. In fact, not only did they work with him, they were able to fix matches. They opened the soccer bowl in Johannesburg, where the World Cup was, with a fixed match. So that was the situation up until 2013. Let's now take a look at what's actually happening currently. Dan Tan was arrested, but as James Dorsey can explain better than I can, he wasn't actually ever arrested as a match fixer. He was arrested under a kind of obscure terrorism law, which meant that he was put in jail and nobody has actually heard his testimony. So he's still in jail in Singapore, but he's never been able to testify about which particular sports officials, which particular people aided him in setting up that network. What has that done? Well, he's been replaced. His network is essentially still in place. His work is being carried on. 2, and this is much, much more serious. Please take this lesson away. Fixing has metastasized. It's moved out of just these Singaporean, Malaysian guys that we could have beaten a number of years ago. And it's just before the FBI and the Swiss police did their superb arrests in May, the Italian Organized Crime Task Force took down a fixing ring in Catania in southern Italy. And they described it as an industrial system of corruption. And the police weren't throwing these words around lightly. There were over 30 teams involved in fixing, 30. That's a significant proportion, not of games, but of actual teams that are involved. The same thing Dino Numerato, a Czech academic, speaks about the widespread fixing in the Czech League, where it's routine for some club officials, not all, not the majority, but some club officials to work at this. We've also seen this, you've seen the famous case coming out of Pamplona in Spain, where you're looking at a regular series of fixed matches towards the end of the season in Spanish games. Olympiacos and the Greek trial, as my friend Nicholas from Athens can talk about. Over 100 people have arrested. Olympiacos is the New York Yankees of Greek soccer. That owner will go on trial next week. But over 100 of people have been arrested in that country. Fenerbahce, again, there have been 100 people arrested, some of the top owners. And according to 3 trials run by Turkish Organized Crime Task Force, essentially the league is thoroughly rotten. It's just run on a system of, as they say, industrialized corruption. Milan Sapina. This is an interview I gave with Milan Sapina gave me. Just let's talk about why they're able to establish this corruption network. Please, just one of the guys. Thanks.
Hill, why is there fixing? Sapina. Sometimes it is the clubs who are friends with each other. They may want to help each other. Sometimes it is the president who arranges with the other president. Or sometimes it is the boss of the club. The bosses then bet on the results. It happens a lot in lower divisions.
Right, Milan Sapina, for those of you guys that don't know it, was one of the chief linchpins in the network. In fact, he and Dan Tan and a number of guys in the betting industry, the illegal betting industry, met in Vienna in a hotel room to discuss how they could rate the certainties of fixing matches and games. And together they put a network of several hundred matches, including Champions Leagues and European Nations Cups, all the way down to lower division work going on. So let's talk quickly about who detects match corruption. This is from some of my Oxford doctorate thesis work. Who actually begins the work? And as Nicholas was saying, much of it actually comes from wiretaps, comes from completely unrelated investigations into something else, drugs, whatever it can be, and they throw up match fixing as a side. The Bochum boys, the German Organized Crime Task Force, it actually came about with a wiretap. They were putting on a Turkish mafia guy who had threatened to rape and kill the daughter of a German prosecutor. Who's at the bottom in terms of detecting, initiating match-fixing investigations? National football associations. The very people that you would think theoretically would be administering, would be in charge of this, would be leading the fight. Again, can we get someone to read this? This is a standard thing when you talk to police and prosecutors, what they find when they're dealing with football associations. Please, just somebody help us out here. Thanks, Jens.
No one in the sports world wants to know about this case. Everyone wants to believe in a clean game, so the football associations does not want to talk about this case. Prosecutor involved in match-fixing case, interview with Hill 2007. We, the law enforcement agencies, received no help from the football associations. In fact, quite the opposite. They closed ranks. They do not want to admit publicly that if match-fixing, match-fixing goes on. Prosecutor involved in a match-fixing case, interview with Hill 2012.
Right, those are typical interviews with police. They will typically say that. Again, not all the time, not all the stuff. Here's a quick look at all the police investigations by European police force in match-fixing across the continent of Europe and Turkey and Lebanon in the last 5 years. I want to bring this chart up very quickly because it shows and gives the lie to the sports officials' paradigm that police are not taking this seriously. These are the local police. These are the heroes. This is law enforcement across Europe that is arresting and convicting people. Let me leave you with this note. Happy to talk about it at greater length during our panel discussion. As Alex said, there's an anti-match-fixing industry that is essentially the Wild West. This is the report by Peter Nicholson and his colleagues on the systemic doping inside professional cycling during the 1990s and early 2000s. And essentially what Peter and the other investigators were able to identify that the wrong people were using the wrong tools in the wrong way. They were enabling doping. At the same time as they were claiming that doping existed, they were using great cliches or saying we're going to attack it, we're going to root it out. It really is an issue of the rogue athlete with ethical issues. We're going to educate the athletes to be more ethical. Essentially, they were enabling systemic corruption. I warn you, I beg you, I urge you, there is the same kind of strain and strand going through the anti-match-fixing industry. Be very careful. There is a great trough of bullshit in that industry. It's not everyone. Not every sports official is corrupt by any means. The great majority of them are hardworking, decent people. But this is strong, strong danger that we are going to be led down a road and the anti-match fixing industry will lose. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill, for this very interesting and lively presentation, which really gave food for thought. And if someone is a little shaken by the format of the presentation, I'm happy to announce that coffee is waiting outside. And we will reconvene at 10:45. So please be back at 10:45. Thank you.
Nå, sidste gang handlede det kun om match. Altså hele... I 13, der handlede det kun om match. Hele. Og det var mange af de samme. Men det er stadigvæk et vildt spændende emne. Det er vildt spændende, nu har de haft 2 år mere til at arbejde på det. Nej, men så er det jo, jeg tror, det der FIFA, det gør, at nu kommer der flere ting til syne. Fordi hvis FIFA gør gennemarbejdet, så skal det forbundet også gennemarbejde. Og så bliver det helt gennemsigtigt. Ja. Det er det, der er meget godt, det er, at man bare kan komme her tilbage til undervisningen. Det er den næste opgave, og så har du alle kilderne her. Så dejligt. Ja, det var heller ikke særligt. Det var meget diplomatisk. Der var ikke rigtigt. Det var der var på hurtige kommentarer 2 eller 3 gange. Der var ingen natur at sige noget. Der var ingen natur at sige noget. Det er derfor, man skal næsten. Og så havde du sådan en, som hvad hedder det, Fuller, som hvad hedder det, sidder og stiger. Det falder bare til jorden, fordi der er ikke nogen, der går tilbage. De har noget modspil overhovedet. Så synes de bare sådan, ja, men det må vi se på. Jeg vil gøre det. Så må vi lige kigge på det. Okay, så må vi gøre det. Jeg har afleveret bachelor et år siden. Men jeg var med sidste gang, fordi der var jeg i gang med at skrive. Altså, jeg udsatte sig lige over siden. Det gør man jo altid. Så blev jeg direkte ansat tilbage. Svenske hovedforbund, og så hos den var jeg over. Og dengang var jeg også den eneste, der ikke jeg går på idræt. Nå, det gør jeg ikke. Jeg skrev faktisk en konklusion. Det var ret fedt dengang bare at få alle kilderne herudefra. Og så dengang var der rigtig mange analyser, som lige var kommet. Og jeg havde ikke så meget af det heller ikke skrevet om sådan en dybdegående. Og så fik jeg jo bare 600 spil rundt om i Europa. Og så kunne jeg bruge det direkte i det. Der stod også bare, når nogen jeg fik tilbage fra sendelsen, stod bare godt kildekort. Du havde sådan godt kildekort, jeg var med. Tak. Det kom på 14 dage i år. Altså, men det er jo bare med at bruge det, fordi det er det der, jeg har fået en masse kort med mig. Fordi det er rundt om Europa, så har jeg bare sådan lidt, okay, så skriv til mig. Hver gang så er det sådan, her er så det. De vil så gerne give det videre, ikke? Men man sidder nogle, altså jeg vil også selv tænke, okay, så kan man bare skrive, hvad jeg jeg fik lige også noget af det. Det er vigtigt. Så fik jeg også bare det, fordi der er noget, som så ikke er udgivet. man ikke kan udgive, så kan du heller ikke spille. Men lige snart det udgivet, så kan du det. Jamen, det var faktisk lidt, det der gjorde udslaget min opgave, det var, at de var sådan, hvor du var alle dine kilder, der er to år, så nogle gange, når man skriver de opgaver, så er det sådan, at man lige den vej, så når man sidder og hører, i dag så kan du dreje til topstarten, dreje til USA, derfor endte så gør jeg det sådan i det land. Så gør jeg det sådan i det land. Og så får vi med det land. Hvis det var så meget.
Just that we have normal protocols sort of how we engage the vendors. But certainly I'm happy about it. Great to meet you. All right, look forward to it. All right, thank you. Unfortunately, no. We have sort of strict protocols on how we so media inquiries can be made. We're all sometimes we don't have to do this, but we get to follow the steps of sort of how our reporter's office. So certainly not something now or today, but contact request that I know it's easier now while I'm here as asking questions. Unfortunately, I'm happy that you listen. I'm sorry. No, it's not permitted. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I wish I could.
Det er bare fordi, det er jo næsten
Probably. I mean, we usually grant
og der kommer en nej, det er meget ofte. Det er opdaget, så er det nej, but as long as it's
so if you go to our FBI website, FBI.gov office,
der er en fra 9 til 11, og så er der en igennem eftermiddag.
If you tell them what it's about, it will certainly come. So if you look up on the website, FBI Office of Public Affairs, you can request inquiries, and that will put you in touch with someone there, and they'll speak to you what it's about. Oh, very good. That's okay.
Yep, thank you.
Ah, great. They'll just have to take your word. So you can see the program. Yes. Yeah. On the FBI.gov. Right in that field. Yeah. But yeah, we certainly have some information.
Men det er også svært, fordi at når man bruger artiklerne, så lyder der meget anderledes interessant. Martin, det er sådan en mindre produktion, og det er egentlig ikke det her det er jo kæmpe emne. Hvor er det smart. Den har altså kun 2 streger i batteriet. Ja, det er mørkbrød langt hår. Vil du gerne blive lidt rundt? Men så skal I huske, at det ligger rundt i MatchVision, så man kan se det altid på video. Jeg ved godt, det er ikke samme at sidde i Supervisory, men det er vildt fedt i forhold til, at skal sidde og skal på og kigge tilbage. Også hvis der er et eller andet, man lige skal på. Jeg skulle bare må vise, at det er sådan en jeg tror, der er noget, der fortæller ikke. Og det er heller ikke nemt, at vi bare kommer en fast dag.
Downstairs. My God. It's really cold here.
Hvor var den? Jo, det var ikke nødvendigt.
Var det ikke noget?
Set to go?
Ja, det er
I mean, certainly, you know, Albanian organizers, Albanian-based organizers don't really have the styles to that. And not so much in that, I mean, so for us, you know, this sort of on matches, and then to whatever degree we can, international partners to work with.
Encore plus les traces de...
Hvad?
Encore plus lidt.
Mener du? Hvis der er senere på dagen. Hvad det på morgenstund, så går det nedad, så bliver man overtræt, så går det opad igen.
Så bliver det vildt godt. 2-tiden allerede igen, så begynder man at savne aftensmad.
Når de paneler, hvor de knykker, så skal de præsentere sig selv, ikke?
Jo, så præsenterer de sig selv, og så rejser de sig op. Det har de sådan en helt til. Yeah, your water glass will over there, and then. It's okay. Just about ready.
Mest synd for hende, der sad på over. Nej, diktafonen. Den har ligget optaget også gennem første læse.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to start again, so please find a seat. So we've come to our final presentation before the panelists will find their places, and we will have hopefully a very fruitful and lively discussion at the end of this session. And as the last speaker, I'm delighted to present Mr. Leandro Shara, who is the CEO and founder of MatchVision. Leandro is, as a mathematician, is an expert in tournament systems, and he created headlines all over the world recently when he launched a system that, according to him, would make all matches in the World Cup of football counting, and thereby avoid so-called dead rubbers, matches where nothing is really at stake, and hence could be targets for match fixing. So it's a great pleasure for me to introduce you. Please, Mr. Take the floor.
Thank you very much for that opportunity. I came from Chile, very long, far away trip. My English is not good. I will try to do my best. However, I have something great to present you. It's how the new format can eradicate strategic match fixing and how reduce the betting-related match fixing. MatchVision is the only one company in the world working to create new way to do tournament without groups, without playoff in the first round. Let me share with you the following video.
Non mais dans l'ordre, je peux vous dire que ça ne bougera plus. Non. Clairement. Ouais. Je pense que M. Bouchaï pourrait peut-être même anticiper sur son coup de sifflet final. Ça se fait.
Kratko vrijeme, a onda nakon 35 sekundi Španjolci će imati 2 igrača više. Kopljar, Duvnjak, Vori je na crti, to su sada koraci ili...
And they lose the ball. And no movement from the Australian bench, and the throwdown team now. Here they go 4-on-2. Surely this time, Morea inside for Benz Eduardo Mingas. Uh-oh, the throwdown again, and the crowd.
Was it strategy or was it behavior detrimental to the sport? 8 female badminton doubles players have been disqualified from the Olympics. Players from South Korea, China, and Indonesia are accused of purposely losing to get a better matchup in the next round. The problem is that the tournament is round robin instead of a knockout format.
Teams can see ahead who they might be playing, and in this case, 2 of the teams actually went in the tank because they wanted to be in different halves of the draw. Well, they're countrymen. How are you going to combat some of that stuff? It's not an easy solution. I hate to say it, but the best solution is don't be so obvious about it.
The International Olympic Committee chose not to get involved in the matter, deferring to the Badminton World Federation.
The International Olympic Committee's point of view, we applaud the swift and decisive action by the Federation. They took action quickly, they've dealt with this. This is unsporting behaviour, people want to see proper competition, and we think they've taken the right decision.
The matches were so bad Wednesday that fans were booing the team's poor play. London organizers say what happened was depressing, but they will not be refunding any tickets. Mark Carlson, The Associated Press, London.
It's not easy to explain how we can reduce the match fixing, but I will share with you some ideas. That journalist, a very important journalist, said, players can always try to lose, and they will. The best solution is don't be so obvious about it. Believe me, I don't agree with him. And additionally, the International Olympic Committee said the federation has to take action quickly. However, nobody is giving a real solution to prevent match fixing. And for us, the issue is with the tournament format. Key issues discussed in recent years regarding major sport events: how to allocate the limited sport across different competitions, how to make more flexible the championships format, and additionally, how to avoid match fixing. Martin McFly arrived to the future a few days ago, and so we don't have flight cars. We don't have self-teaching shoes. And we still use the same format that created the problem in the 80s, like this grace of Gijón with West Germany and Austria. What's happened today? Everything evolves: communication, medicine, real-time statistic, except tournament format. The tournament format are the same from the old Greece. When Spartacus go to fate with other, could do that one by one, direct elimination, or by group. That's happened today in the tournament. We have two kinds of format. Playoff, number of players and games increase exponentially, works for 2n number of participants only, and additional participant invite. It's not fair. And the group system, the smaller the group, the lower uncertainty, speculation, increase in players, number of matches grows exponentially too, existence of dead or weak group. For example, the Euro Cup with 24 teams in 6 groups of 4, the probability of match fixing is 67%. With our system, the probability could be reduced to less 8%. The result of the existing format, what's happened in badminton, the scandal for London. In handball, Macedonia lost to Denmark to avoid France in the next round. In basket, Australia under investigation. In Copa America 2011, Paraguay reached the final without winning a match. The consequence: 1, affecting the sport spirit; 2, disqualification of athletes; 3, format facilitate losing and speculating; 4, sole alternative apparently is playoff. However, playoff and group format are not the solution. Is there any alternative format to avoid match fixing? That is our solution thinking in a World Cup for FIFA. Thinking in 36 teams, because FIFA said it's impossible to do a World Cup with 36 teams. FIFA tried to create a new system for Germany 2006, and FIFA said it's impossible. We believe it's possible, and we can reduce the match fixing. How? In 3 pots. Every pot has 12 teams. When we are talking about pot, we are not talking about groups. The pot could be organized for geographical situation, for ranking, for draw, for any way, but I will be talking about ranking. Then in the pot A will be the top team, like Germany, like Argentina, maybe Brazil, maybe the Netherlands. Maybe England? Okay. In the pot B, medium team, Denmark, Switzerland, Mexico. In the pot C, emerging teams, Korea, Venezuela, Japan. Then, doesn't matter where your team is, could be A, B, or C, will be playing with somebody A like Argentina, somebody B like Switzerland, and somebody C like Korea. 3 matches, as today. However, the pot could be 4, 3, 5, any number, because the system is very flexible. Thinking in 3 matches. One team will play then with somebody A, with somebody B, with somebody C. 3 matches, no groups. Remember, the pots are no groups. Then the question is how the teams go to the next round. Remember, every team plays 3 matches in the first round. Every team plays against one team of each pot, no matter in which pot it has been placed. But all the teams go to just one general standing table. The competition will be all against all. Then your team will be not participating with just 3 teams, will be in competition with all the teams. And additionally, for the second round, the team number 1 will be playing with the 16, the second with the 15, the third with the 14. What's happened with that? In my team, it's the number 16. Maybe the second round will be playing with Germany. I am lost. Then all the team will try to be as high as possible. And look, Argentina always tried to be better than Brazil, and the Brazilian, they want to be more than Argentinian. And the Algerian people trying to be more than Egypt people. And maybe, I don't know, England than Germany. I don't know. The competition will be very close. And nobody has the opportunity to things to lose. Because it's not possible under that new format. Everyone tried to win every individual match. What's happened with big teams? They won 2 matches, and the third, they want to avoid the yellow card, the red card, and injuries. With that system, they are obligated to be the first in order to have a weak rival in the second round. Nobody will be happy in the position 16. All will try to be as high as possible. The teams are always encouraged during the first round to improve in the standing. And look, in the second round is playoff stage. However, mathematically, that is perfect because the first will be playing with 16, the second with the 15, the third with the 14, and every box is 17. 7 plus 10 is 17, 3 plus 14 is 17. That second round will be imbalanced. That is not happening today. With that system, a World Cup could be done in the same quantity of days that today. Today, the World Cup has 32 teams in 32 days. With our system, 36 teams could play in 32 days. And with 42 teams, it's only 2 additional days. And look how the teams A will be playing with the team C, B, and A. We can have a very good opening matches between team A, like Brazil, Spain, France, Italy, Argentina, Germany, for example. And how it's not in a group of 4, the third match is needed to play in the same time because match fixing under our system is not needed. If Chile has 3 points and Denmark has 4, Chile is trying to be in 6 and Denmark is 7. If Switzerland has 5 and Korea has just 1, Switzerland tried to be in 8 and Korea tried to be in 4. Nobody is qualified previously and nobody is eliminated before the third match. That is the world sport map. This solution, we have more of 30 new solutions. Just that's one solution, could be applied in 10 of the 11 most popular sport. Match fixing and score manipulation. In 14 groups, speculation level is 50% or more. A number of teams is an open door for manipulation. For example, Rugby World Cup. Last round is played simultaneously and reduced manipulation, but they still happen in almost every big tournament. Inflexibility increase in players or competitors. Number of matches grows exponentially. FIFA declared the 2016 World Cup is as impossible because they couldn't find the way to reduce 2016 to only 16 in an easy and simple way. Low value, low interest matches. Teams qualify, eliminate before last game. More probability of match fixing. That's happened with the betting companies. Then MatchVision format incentive teams to win all matches, always. MatchVision format are flexible and avoid manipulation. MatchVision format against value of integrity, transparency, and anti-corruption. Obviously, our system has global protection. And our mission is to let to know to the world that new tournament format exists and they provide solution for fairness and transparency in sport competition. We have a group of people working for you, specialists in different sport, in different companies. Welcome to the next generation tournament format. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Leandro, for this highly interesting presentation. I think even for non-mathematicians, it was very clear how your system is, the intention of your system is going to work. And I think it was interesting to have another perspective on how to combat match fixing, this time with a more preventive, from a more preventive line of sight. So now I would like, please, all the panelists to take to find their seats up here at the podium. And I think we could have one of the technicians to help with the microphones, etc. Before we start, please, if you have a question, of course, raise your hand, and then when the mic comes down to you, stand up and state your name and where you're from. In that way, the cameraman has a chance to catch you and get your remarks or your questions on the video. Okay, apart from the speakers, we also have an additional panelist. That is Ms. Shara Lacarrière. Hope I pronounced it approximately correct. And since you did not have the chance to speak before, I would like please to ask you to give a short presentation of yourself and your line of work.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, good morning, everybody. I don't really know in which capacity I'm here in this panel, but obviously there was a lack of a woman on this one, so it was good maybe to have it. Well, of course, I'm kidding, and I'm very honored to have been associated to this panel. Initially, I'm here at the Play the Game conference as the chair of the consultative committee of EPAS, and we are holding a meeting right after this, and that's the main reason why I'm here. But on this topic, I can share my experience. I have worked during 3 years at Sportradar. Sportradar is the Association of International Sports Federation, Olympic and non-Olympic, and I was there assigned to the development of prevention tools to work with the federations on their regulations and education policies. Just some brief remarks about this. Of course, the international federations have to be driving forces, have to set standards in the field, but as competition organizers themselves, they are not the one that are the most exposed to match fixing risk as they organize high profile competition where obviously the athletes are less corruptible. That being said, there is a trend, and we've seen some World Cup matches, qualifying matches involved, and that was demonstrated. So there still needs to be some vigilance from these international federations. There are a lot of them. It's over 100 federations that Sportradar is gathering, And you can imagine that among them there are that does not feel concerned at all by the betting issue because they say, well, we don't have betting on our sports. So that coming back on what Stan presented, it's very important for the sports organizations to have some idea of the reality of the betting offer on their competition, and there's a clear lack of this at the moment. International federations, well, not all of them have regulations in place, but it's progressively being set up. Well, under the incentive of the IOC, notably for the Olympic federations. But once these regulations are in place, they need to be taught. I mean, athletes, they don't know, they cannot bet on their sport. They're not always aware on the way they can be approached. They are subject to addiction risk and all this. So Sport Accord had made, with the help of experts in the field, and one is on my right side, an education program. And that education program is actually made mandatory for the athletes taking part in Sport Accord multi-sport games. They had to go through the program and get certified to get into the competition. The reason why I'm saying that, and I can now say that, and I'm out of the sport, is that the zero tolerance policy, the zero tolerance discourse is very important. We see it everywhere. But at the same time, it's not helping in athletes that are targeted by fixers, by gangsters to speak out. And there is, once you have educated your athletes, once you have approved that they are certified, they know the risk and all this, then you can claim for zero tolerance. Just to conclude on this Sport Accord experience, again, the IF has a model role to play and a monitoring role to play towards their national associations, but it's really at national level that you can do the prevention and that you can act, just because the daily environment of the athletes are at national level. So that's a key ingredient. I'm now coming to my new function, which has been in place for 2 months. I'm working for the World Lotteries and the development of the global lottery monitoring system. So I can try to briefly refer to the title of this panel, which is Governments versus Gangsters, What are the Odds? Just a few thoughts, and then I'll pass the questions. It's not a priority for governments. This issue is not a priority. When addressing criminal threats, you want to first focus on drug trafficking, on a human trafficking, terrorism issue. So this gives odds in favor of the gangsters, obviously. Yet it's important to have in mind that sports betting frauds and the money that is involved in illegal betting is also a means for these mafias, these organizations, to finance other activities. Odds are obviously favorable to transnational, to gangsters, as they are transnational and nationally organized. And obviously the competences of investigation of the states are limited to their jurisdictions, and that was clear from what Declan presented, that we have some schemes that are going everywhere around the world, and it's not always easy for a national police to cooperate. And Dantan case was a good example of how much time it took to arrest this person in Singapore, although you had some authorities in Italy and other countries in Europe that were looking for him. To finish on a positive note, then I'll just mention the EPAS convention that might change the odds and bring it in favor to the governments, as this is a real tool for international cooperation and sharing of information. Let's keep in mind that the anti-doping convention was initially addressed by the Council of Europe and then brought to the UNESCO level, and then it led to well, in international organizations, which is not what we want to fight match fixing, not necessarily. But so this kind of convention is certainly a means to have the odds change in favor of the governments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shara, for that introduction to yourself and your work. And I am quite sure there must be tons of questions waiting at the audience. So let's start in the second row there.
Good morning. It's Khaled Ali. I from ESSA, which has been mentioned a few times. I represent the private regulated betting operators, so the likes of bwin, Unibet, William Hill, Paddy Power, etc. We have around 20 members representing over 40 million customers in Europe. Leonardo, very interesting presentation. I had one question though. I can imagine a situation during the World Cup, if we used your format, where there could be a number of teams on the same amount of points with the same amount of goals. So what would happen then?
Okay.
And my question to Nicholas, one of our objectives is to have a regulated market in Europe and worldwide. Do you think the US would benefit from a regulated sports betting market?
Okay, so that was actually two questions, but that's okay for now. So, Leandro, I think the first question was...
I have a presentation, could pass the first question for
the other
person.
So Nick, will you take the question addressed to you?
Sure. Yeah, listen, I mean, that's a huge debate in the U.S., and there's opinions on both sides. I'm here on behalf of the FBI, and the FBI doesn't give sort of opinions on the regulation of gambling or not. I'll simply note that, you know, currently it's illegal almost everywhere in the U.S. to bet. There's also a huge market for sports betting. And so without some sort of legalized market, most people, everyday citizens, bet through these illegal means, and they may or may not know that they're financing ultimately organized crime. So, like I said, this is a hot topic debate in the U.S. I think it's really starting to get some pressure, certainly as it relates to daily fantasy sports. Is sort of bringing all of that to the forefront in the U.S. And I think in the months to come, that will have to be sort of ironed out. I know that's not a good answer to your question, but you know, for the FBI, regulated or not, there will always be an illegal sector of illegal gambling, and that's where we'll always, you know, stay. That's where we'll always investigate. For us, it's very clear. We don't really care whether it's legalized or not. We'll always investigate sort of the illegal portions of it. But I think that debate might come to a conclusion here in the near future in the U.S.
Okay, thank you very much. And Leandro, in the meantime, as a mathematician, of course you have the answer for that question. And very short presentation.
Thank you for the question. And look,
I'll read it.
It's a very intelligent question, but that's happening today. For example, in the Under-20 World Cup in Turkey, Greece and Paraguay has the same level of points and goals. This year in New Zealand, there's 20 FIFA Under-20 happened between Uruguay and Mali. And that could happen. Let me give you an example. In Copa America, we have 3 groups. Thinking the Copa America use one general standing under my system, that's the situation. Look what happened with Peru and Uruguay. 4 points, 2 goals in favor, 2 goals against. Then the question, what FIFA do? Today, FIFA use a coin to determine which is in continuing competition. Look, Peru lost with Brazil, won to Venezuela, tie with Colombia. And Peru versus Brazil, Peru won 0 points, and Brazil has 6 in the general standing of the groups, okay? Then my proposal is to multiply 0.6 times 6. Peru, Venezuela, Peru won 3 points versus a rival that complete 3 points, okay? And Peru won just 1 point versus Colombia. Colombia has 4. Then relative points give the solution with 13. What's happened with Uruguay very fast? It's the same situation. Uruguay won 0.6 3 points versus Jamaica with 0. 0 point because lost with Argentina, and 1 point versus Paraguay with 5. Look, the relative point for Uruguay is only 5. Then it's better to win a big team and not a small one, you know? Then every team, small, medium, or top, will try to win always. We use that system in Copa Peru. With 50 teams, nobody try to do match fixing for first time in the tournament, okay? That's it, sir.
Thank you very much, Leandro. We trust you that the calculation was correct. Very convincing. Okay, we have a question. The gentleman from Greece, the third row. Yeah.
Hello, this is Nikolaos Theodorou, Athens, Greece. My question goes to Alex, and maybe Shara would like to contribute with her opinion. Last April, the Greek Parliament introduced a new sports law that demands from the Greek Football Federation to ASAP forward the FDS Sportradar reports directly to the Sport Minister. Since Sportradar is a profit business company, the question is, are you going to accept and obey these new regulations of the Greek sport law, so the demands of the Greek citizens and sportsmen? Thank you very much.
So, is this on?
Yeah.
Yeah. So your question is whether, because the law, as I understand it, is that the FA has to forward those reports on to the minister. Is that correct? So, who is the obligation on?
You must be aware of this, sir.
No,
because the Sportradar is operating in Greece in cooperation with the Greek Football Federation and with the Greek lotteries. So, since May, Sportradar is obliged, according to the Greek law that is in force now, to immediately forward the Sportradar FDS reports to the Greek Ministry of Sports. Is it clear?
Yeah, my understanding is that our contract is with the Greek Football Association. We continue to provide reports. Well, the Greek Football Association is not our client at the moment. That's the first thing to remember. We offer our reports to UEFA. So whether the reports come through to the Greeks is a separate issue, because that comes. So the path of the report is that if we see a suspicious match in Greek football, we send a report to UEFA, who is the client and for whom we monitor the top 2 leagues in each country. UEFA then have a decision to make whether they send that report through to Greece. And in Greece, whatever happens in Greece is Greek law. We don't operate in Greece in the FDS system, so we continue to provide our reports to UEFA, as is our contract. And what happens after that is not our legal obligation.
Dear Alex, maybe you are not aware, I respect this, but maybe the relevant executives in your business must know that the last 3 years, the Greek Football Federation hid all the Sportradar reports inside their offices in the Greek Football Federation, and they never submitted with their integrity officer of UEFA to the Greek state. The Greek police demanded these Sportradar files, and that's why we have now open case for Olympiakos president through the match with the Salonika team.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we cannot go further into this more detailed discussion about in which direction this information goes. So I think Alice actually answered the question, and we still have time for several other questions. We have a gentleman down there. Yeah.
Well, I am Aníbal Chaim from Brazil, São Paulo. I have 2 questions, one for each member of the table. The first is for the Mr. Leandro. Yeah. I figure a hypothesis here about your format of the World Cup. I would like to give a counterexample to your format. Let's suppose that, for example, in the the third round of the group stage of the World Cup, there's a game between Bahamas and Brazil. And that Bahamas has lost its two first games, and Brazil has drawn its two first games. So Bahamas has no longer chances of getting classified among the 16 first places, and Brazil needs 100% winning this game for getting classified. So let's suppose that this game would occur. Is this game even more likely to get match fixed than in the traditional format? This is the question. The second one goes to the Mr. Declan. You told us that the the match fixing scheme is no longer exogenous, but endogenous to the dirigents, to the administrators of football and other sports also, but my scopus is in football. So if it is like you said, so why studying match fixing? Because we can do nothing. The ones who should fight against it are the ones who own the pen. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Leandro, again, rather technical question, if you can do it short, please.
You. Okay, thank you for the question. I can speak in Portuguese later with you. Look, we have an example in Copa Peru with 50 teams in 6 days. Nobody was qualified in the 5th date. They had 6. And only 3 teams were eliminated. In a World Cup with 36 teams, nobody will be eliminated because the team with 3 points could advance. And if Brazil has 6, try to be the first. The answer is the option of manipulation of result is almost zero under that situation. And additionally, today in a group of 4, the last 2 matches has to be played in the same time. With our system, it's not needed. Then TV will be watching us, showing us more matches in different times. I can explain that in detail.
Okay,
later.
thank you very much. We will leave that to a Portuguese-Spanish language
in
discussion afterwards in Portuguese. Okay. And Mr. Hill, the second question, I think, if I understood it correctly, was more or less, why bother? We already we have the problem. What to do about it? And you only have, please, 1 maybe 2 minutes. Yeah.
Look, brother, I think everybody in this room loves sport. I think you're being rhetorical. I've risked my life to preserve sport, and I think we got to keep fighting for sport. What I was trying to say was, look, let's not avoid something obvious here. We've all seen the good work of Nicholas's colleagues or the FBI. This extraordinary investigation they and the Swiss Organized Crime Task Force is putting on. There are criminals inside sport. And my final warning is that be careful of this industry. Be careful of the anti-match fixing industry. Not everyone, as Alex was saying, is working in good faith. So you as interested researchers, journalists, academics, officials have to start developing a sense of how to measure what people are saying to you in the anti-match fixing discussions.
Thank you very much. We have a question from Mrs. Sapelli, who is a representative of the IOC.
Yes, thank you for giving the opportunity to I know Sarah is no more working from the sports movement, so just to say 2 words. The first one is that definitely from this panel this morning, we understand that match fixing is not a specific precise science. So that it means there's a lot of things to intervene, and it's very difficult, much more difficult than with doping, where we at least are having tests, positive or negative. So thank you for what you said, Declan, that it is very complex and very difficult. Just another point which is
I actually didn't say that.
You say that we all have to fight all together. That is
I'm sorry to disagree with you so publicly. No, I don't think it's complex. I think, with all due respect to Leonardo, there's a great way of eliminating fixing at World Cups. I really like his method. I really like his thing. But pay the players. Like, there are 32 teams showing up at the world's biggest soccer tournament, the world's biggest sporting tournament, and many teams don't pay their players. How many professors, how many journalists in this room would do your job if you weren't being paid? You really want to stop fixing at the World Cup? Pay the players.
I'm sorry, Declan. Football is not the only sport in the world, and especially the match fixing is not concern not only football. That's where I'm going to, that was the end of my speech. So I appreciate you mentioned again football, but football is not the only sport in the world. And I think it's very important, the question of the format of the competition. That's what I wanted to dress on, because this is part of the assessments, the sports with the sports betting industries, being private or public, have to do together. So I think it's very important that the format of the competitions have to be reviewed. And then I agree with Mr. Shara that, of course, it's important. Doesn't refrain from saying that the financial, economical situation of the players in football as well as in other sports, basket, handball, and so on, is not a part of the problem. But it is very complex, and you are exactly saying that it is complex. I just want to specify something with regard to your presentation, Mr. Shara, because you mentioned that the IOC in London did not react. First of all, the IOC did what we can do at the time of the games, that we withdrew the accreditation, the people were out of the games and of England in less than 24 hours. So, further to this, the federation, when they are really active, and all the federations are not like football, and I gave the example of badminton, which is very good.
Excuse me, Mrs. Sapelli,
no, it's short. It's short because
do you
it's
have a question for the panel? Because there's a lot of people who want to pose questions.
The International Federation of Badminton changed, in fact, the format of the competition after London. That's it all. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I answer very short?
Very short.
Very short. Maybe my English is no good. Thank you for your point, madam. And look, the badminton new tournament format was tried in London again for para badminton tournament, and again match fixing happened.
Really?
It really. And I can explain in detail the new format, and that's happened again.
Okay.
We can help to International Olympic Committee to change that.
Thank you very much, Leandro. I think we should have some questions in a slightly different direction now than going into too much details about the tournament formats now. There's a gentleman down there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hello, Simon Gardner from Nice Beckett University in the UK. Just one quick comment as far as Sarah's presentation. She talked about zero tolerance in match fixing. I think the recent FIFPro report on whistleblowing, partly funded by the EU, really reinforced the notion that, in fact, a lot of people who are being manipulated, who are involved in match fixing, are really victims. So, you know, the concept of zero tolerance is actually quite a troublesome approach to adopt when, you know, those people who are getting manipulated aren't getting paid, they're in obscure leagues, obscure clubs, and really, you know, we need to be looking at a more supportive approach. I thought all the presentations were really interesting, and what came out of it for me was organised crime being an external issue around sport, and then Declan Hill talking about the reality that people within sport are the people who are really the criminals and the crooks. What I'd like to know from an academic perspective, and I guess I'd like, you know, all the presenters to give a view on this, is, you know, I think this area is really under-theorized and under-researched.
Sorry, could you please pose your question?
Yeah, we don't know the amount of organised crime. What are the bodies of knowledge that we still need to know from your own individual perspective?
Who wants to take up that question?
I don't understand.
Shara, maybe?
Well, Simon, I'm looking forward to your speech, the one about integrity deficit. I'll be there this afternoon. I'm really intrigued to see what you said. I urge you, if you got a chance, I know this sounds like self-aggrandizing, but please take a look at my second book, which is the doctoral research that I did at the University of Oxford, where I lay out definitions. I lay out some really simple like just knowing what time in a tournament or what time in a season the fix is occurring, you have a good way of knowing who's organizing the fix, who they're paying, and how they're actually going to perform the fix. So there is some research out there.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, Alex?
Yeah, for our part...
And I'm sorry, there's a gentleman here who's infiltrated the Albanian mafia and wrote a story. Cool. Cool, do you want to stand up and things? Okay, I don't mean to embarrass you or, make you a target again of the Albanian mafia. But
thank you, Declan. Thank you, Declan, but I'm the moderator, please. So, okay.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I think I welcome your question. I spoke in my presentation, and Declan said as well, it's important to try and cut through a lot of the rhetoric and try and get to some truths and some realities. For our part, we appreciate that what we do, we think it's very good, but we can't be the only ones who think it's good. So we worked with Professor Van Rompuy from the Danish Institute to try and get a bit of clarity on which bets are the dangerous bets. So there's his report, which is the odds on match fixing, I think it's called. He released either at the end of last year or the beginning of this year. We also worked with Professor Forrest from the University of Liverpool to try and basically give a third-party analysis of our FDS to see if it stacks up. So I welcome, or Sportradar welcome the ability to support work with academic research to try and get closer and closer to the truisms that exist in this industry. I don't know if that helps, but that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, thank you very much. The gentleman in the red jacket on the fourth row. Oh, sorry. I will next time. Yeah, you'll get the chance after. Okay.
My name is Lars Werve. I'm president of the Danish Federation of Journalists. How does the public view the fight against match fixing compared to the fight against doping? The public seemed to be, they didn't really care. They wanted the sportsmen to dope. How does the public view this fight against match fixing that has been going on for years and seem to take more and more space?
Wants to take up that question, Alex?
I can start. I think if you look through some of the history of various leagues in various parts of the world where match fixing has become endemic or a problem, those leagues have plummeted in terms of, first of all, fans in the stadium, TV viewership, and as a result, sponsors and broadcast contracts have plummeted. Countries have had to rebrand, re-resurrect leagues in order to try and clearly show that what was old is gone and this is new and it has integrity and you can believe in this tournament. I think there are many reasons why some of the European leagues are interesting to Asia. Part of that is because they have so little faith in what's happening on their doorstep. I once heard an interview with Perimal where he said, "Why did you come to Finland? You're from Singapore, why did you come to Finland?" And he said, "Because people trust Finnish football." So the opportunities are there where sports are considered integral. I think, is there more that needs to be done? Can awareness be raised? Absolutely. But it does have an impact. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but once countries and fans stop having faith in the results that they're watching, it will have a significant impact.
Thank you very much. Shara, a short additional comment?
That was actually related to the previous question briefly. I fully agree with Alex for the monitoring aspects and the fact that the bets that are at risk in this. But apart from this, I think there is one field that is under research is the whistleblowing treatment and protection processes. Well, it's an obligation and it has to be in place for sports organizations to have hotlines. But it's really hard to know whether these hotlines are active. I've seen some federations telling me, no, we don't receive anything, which I think is true. But it's one thing maybe to explore, and the protection of the whistleblowers as well.
And Stan, from the perspective of the Council of Europe, how do you see the problem as?
I don't know how the public react and how the public consider it, but I can confirm that sport is mobilized and the key sports organizations are really involved in fighting match fixing. Betting operators as well, because it endangers their own business, and then the public authorities as well. And if it were only a sports ethic issue, it would not be that strong. But people are aware that it's an issue of economy that matters, the economy of sport, the economy of betting, and an issue to defend the rule of law, fight against organized crime, and that's why the public authorities are that involved in fighting match fixing.
Okay, we still have a couple of minutes, and there's another gentleman also dressed in red. That's why it was a little confusing before, so please.
Thank you.
It should work, hopefully.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Please stand up. Sir.
Yes, sorry, beg your pardon. Rob Steen from the University of Brighton. Just a question about whether people share my attitude. In England, we have the Sky Bet League. We have Betfair, blimps hovering over sports grounds. That makes me very uncomfortable, with all due respect from our chap over here from ESSA. How do the panel feel about the links between sport and the betting industry?
Sarah, maybe want to give an answer to that?
Well,
Alex as
yes,
well?
and there are some conflicts of interest risks, obviously, when you have the owner of a club that is the owner of a betting operator. So that is indeed something that needs to be addressed very carefully. And well, we should not exclude completely sponsorship, but then make sure that these sponsorship logics are not involving some kind of conflicts of interest risk where the owner of a club will be able to use information for betting purposes and betting profits. So it's an important topic to address indeed. Just referring to what the lotteries have done so far, maybe you've come this afternoon to the session and we present you a little more what the lottery's position is about this. There are some guidelines to the lotteries in this field of preserving conflicts of interest.
Thank you very much. A short additional comment, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I back what Sarah's saying. You know, I think the relationship between sport and betting companies needs to be reviewed and needs to be constantly reviewed as things develop. As my presentation shows, the last 15 years has shown huge developments in sport, huge developments in the betting industry, and that will continue to happen, and that relationship needs to continue to be reviewed. But for our part, and it's only for our part, we find the relationship with the betting industry to be useful, primarily because the fraud detection system that I presented wouldn't exist without the betting industry we have the relationship with the betting industry that allows us to look into 450 operators and detect match fixing so broadly. Also, we do, Declan and various other organizations I mentioned do education. We find that bookmakers, while they don't have a specific obligation to support that, they do. They support, in certain places, in certain countries, they support prevention and education workshops to try and raise awareness about the dangers of betting because, as Sarah said, the fundamental point is that fixing hurts betting. So they have an interest to help keep fixers at bay. So we found them generally to be supportive, but I do agree it's a big issue and it needs to be reviewed from every angle.
Okay. As a moderator, I take the liberty of asking the last question, and that'll be for Nick, actually. We heard from Declan's presentation that actually law enforcement are the heroes when it comes to combating match fixing, and that the world of sports and other authorities might do too little to actually attract your attention to these kind of problems. What can other authorities and the sports world do to help law enforcement in these cases? Do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, and I think all successful cases is mostly a joint effort, cooperation. I've spoken to many of the journalists in this room, and I think law enforcement can only do what they can with what they know, and law enforcement is tasked with a complicated objectives on a variety of different things, like many other companies and public agencies, under-resourced, trying to do more with less. So cooperation and partnership, both from the public, private sector, other law enforcement agencies, international law enforcement agencies, has to be the way. And one sort of comment I would make to maybe, since it's mostly journalism in here, there's a lot of knowledge base here that not necessarily law enforcement would have or would be privy to. And if you're looking to engage with law enforcement is sort of tasked with presenting facts quickly, logically, concisely on a sort of degree of proof. So to whatever degree you can, providing that information in such a manner, I think certainly helps law enforcement get engaged sooner, and additionally get prosecutors involved sooner. So that would be my only comment.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all the panelists, and thank you very much for participating. Thanks. Thanks, Stan. It's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yes.
You guys want to tell us about your mood, okay?
Thank you very much. Thank you. I do.